Hello, 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 and welcome to the latest installment of And Sarah Appeared. My name is Sarah, and I'm appearing before you today because I want to illustrate a story or a scenario. A lot of the times, being an intuitive, and I'm sorry if you hear noise in the background. My mom's having a bit of a movie night right now, and I have a 3-year-old son who is covered in hair and has 4 legs, my pupper, and he's a good boy, but he has an infatuation with socks. So mommy said drop it. Mommy said drop it. Mommy said drop it. Drop it. Drop it. Chicken. Chicken. Mommy said drop it. I'm not editing this out. And I love my Roddy. I absolutely love my Roddy, but mommy said drop it. Can you drop it for mommy? Okay. So while we go through this tug of war here, it actually leads us into the segue of an energetic tug of war. The names that I'm going to be using are completely fictional. The scenario is going to be based off of downloads that I've had from the Holy Spirit, and they're very real. They're very real downloads because these are scenarios and things that have happened and I believe, are taking place. And it's honestly, I'm giving you this storyline that I am creating from my intuition, not my imagination, but my intuition. I'm giving you this storyline, and I'm setting up this storyline for you because my goal is to get people to think beyond what we can see and start thinking more about the things that we can feel. Okay, and we're back. Okay, so I had to let him out, but my goal is to get people to think beyond what we see. A lot of the times we feel things. Nowadays, in my generation, we talk about, oh, it's a vibe and I'm feeling a vibe. Well, sometimes your feelings can lie to you, but other times, if you're grounded, if you're balanced, and if you're just naturally intuitive, your feelings can let you know what lies beneath, what is beyond the veil, what is going on beyond what you see. Because now we're living in a world with what we see is an actual illusion. And you've got to be able to get past that. Okay, so riddle me this. Let's say there's a young woman, 36 years old, 2 children, both underneath the ages of 8. Her name is Tamika. Tamika has moved to a new area, a metropolitan area, that has more advancement than her previous hometown. In fact, it's a lot safer, better schools. Tamika has employment. She has employment in the daytime, and then she gets employment for nighttime to be able to afford to live in her 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment with her kids. She drives a modest SUV. It's about 7 or 8 years old, but it still runs like a champ. Very reliable, does good on gas. Tamika does it for herself. She came from a hard background. Her life back home was harsh. Even the weather conditions were harsh. She grew up on the East Coast, lots of snow. Family was a mother. She knew of her father, but he was estranged from the home. And she had extended family, but because of some of the choices that they've made in life, she just decided that it really wasn't to her advantage, now being a mother of 2 children, to engage in some of those activities or to be around some of the old crowd. Tamika is straight-laced, by all means necessary. Her night job, she's a waitress at a bar. And yes, she wears a certain outfit, shows her body a little. She keeps herself up. She's in fabulous shape for her age and being a mother of 2. She never takes anybody home. She doesn't take anyone with her to have any rendezvous. She doesn't even like people around her sons. In the daytime, she works an office job. She pays an elderly woman that she can trust that is in her apartment complex, and she pays her well for taking care of her 2 boys. She never misses a parent-teacher conference. On the weekend, the boys have basketball and soccer. She takes them to their games. She's built up a good rapport with their coach. She doesn't have any friends because she sticks to herself and she doesn't like too much drama. Not everybody is on what Tamika is on. Tamika understands that because her life, from where she's from, many people don't get an opportunity to have stability or peace. She went from hearing helicopters and buses and trains and city life almost every night with her 2 young boys to moving out to the country, where the only thing that they pretty much hear are the crickets outside. And although the weather conditions can still be harsh, it's a lot better. It's a new start. It's a new life. Tamika pays her bills, and she doesn't just pay her bills, but she pays them in advance. She keeps her phone on. She calls back home. She checks on her mom. She sends money. She saves up. She always has food, and she always has the best clothes for her children. And they're well loved. And she makes sure that she engages with them. She's all about her family. She's all about her boys. Tamika doesn't know that she's being watched. And not just the normal being watched. She's being energetically stalked. Tamika, one day, being a very precautious parent as she is, she takes her children to daycare. The woman in her apartment complex, for whatever reason, has fallen ill. She understands that. Tamika has a savings. She has enough put away. She's extremely responsible to the fact where if she wanted her kids to be in daycare for the next year, she could. She puts her kids in the daycare, and she gets a call So 2 hours after arriving to work, Tamika gets a phone call. It's the daycare. One of her sons has broken his arm. She's frustrated. She's flabbergasted. She doesn't know what to think about this because even when she was homeless, living in a shelter, she's always taking care of her boys. She's never had help from anyone. This is supposed to be a place of profession. How did her son break his arm? And how do they think it's okay that this happened on their watch? And now she has to explain to her employer, her main daytime employer, that she has to leave to go tend to this emergency. Frustrated but always professional, she voices her concern. She files a complaint with the daycare. And then she takes her child to the hospital. Tamika, being a woman of color, is questioned, automatically looked upside and down. They're checking to see if the children are healthy, if they're clean. There's a caseworker that's speaking to her. She's not bothered. She's been in the system before. She knows how these things work. The system doesn't intimidate her. She didn't qualify for being on government assistance even when she was homeless, contrary to popular belief. Women of her skin color, of her background, of her class are always typecast as women who are on some sort of assistance from the government, when in actuality, every state has its own law. And not everyone who has children qualifies for assistance, forcing people to do what they have to do. And sometimes speaking to caseworkers, there's an air of prejudice that goes against someone like Tamika, a competent, young, bright, attractive woman of color with 2 young children. The caseworker from the hospital questions Tamika. She doesn't see anything wrong. She understands the situation. It's just an incident at the daycare. There's a full report on it. She gives her card just in case she needs any resources or if she just needs someone to talk to, because she understands that it can be overwhelming being a single parent. Tamika obliges. They get the report for her son after being at the hospital for a little over 12 hours. Exhausted, the 3 of them head home. Tamika calls out to work for the next 2 days to be able to care for her boys at home. And on the day that she goes to return back to work, her battery dies in the parking lot of her apartment. And then she noticed she has a flat. If it's not one thing, it's another. No worries. She has AAA. She has services. She's got insurance. She can do this. She's not going to let anything break her down, nor is she going to allow anything to rattle her. She's got funds. She's got finances. They're safe. They're fine. They're okay. And then Tamika starts having issues on her job with her employer. Now, this is a job that she transferred from her home back east. She's very competent with the company. She knows bylaws. She's one of the top employees. In fact, she's next in line for a promotion. The conflict gets so bad that Tamika ultimately is let go. Not because of anything that she's done, but because of things that just didn't seem to pan out. Or so she's told from her employer. Upset but determined, Tamika continues with what she knows as life. And she has some good news. She's told that she can pick up extra hours at her second place of employment. This woman is approached and she's offered to go to a local place of worship. She's offered to come in and be a part of a community that's actually going to care for her, that's going to have her back. And to be honest with you, that sounds good. Since Tamika was 18 years old, she's been on her own. No one has really just given her a helping hand. No one has really just extended any kind of kindness that could actually make a difference in her life. She has always worked for everything that she's had. She's never gotten over on anyone. She's always been kind, but not too kind to allow someone to run her over. Her son's father is incarcerated. They were young, and he was just doing what he had to do to take care of his kids. He's a good man, but he's not there. And so Tamika has to do what she has to do. A sense of community, a sense of belonging, feeling as if somebody actually cares. That sounded good. So Tamika goes into this community, into this place of worship, and it's inviting. The sermon speaks to exactly what she has been dealing with, the issues that have been pent up in her that she has not been able to express because society tells her that you're complaining, you're not doing enough, or you should be happy with just what you have. But she knows that there's more for her and that there's more to this life than what she's living. And also, why can't she be frustrated? Why can't she be upset about the fact that nobody was there for her in her youth and nobody is there for her in her most vulnerable times of need, especially being a parent? She doesn't even go out there on the dating scene like that because she's automatically stigmatized because she's a single mother, even though her body looks better than half of the women out there who don't even have children. She's not loose with her love, but she's definitely not stingy with it. She works hard. She's honest. She would never steal from anyone. Why is it that no one can be there for her? Why is it that her father moved on with an entire new family? And he did better with the new family than he did with her and her mother. So much so that his children have gone to college. Why is it that her mother just couldn't get it quite together. And after the unfortunate passing of her brother, who was in college, that her mother just stayed on the bottle. Why couldn't her mother stay strong enough for her? She had lost one child, but she had still another. Why is it that at 18, because of the fact that things had gotten out of hand, out of control, and no one was there in the family, that she was homeless? And that's where she went to a shelter, and that's where she met her son's father, who was a good man who just needed to get something up for his kids. He just needed to hustle to get something for his kids so that they could move into a decent neighborhood. He could put them into a private school and they could each have their own car. But because one of his friends and his cousins was jealous of him and the relationship and the plans that they had, they set him up. Now he's doing a 10-year bid. And it's been 8 years. Why was she having all of this conflict going on? And the moment she gets a foot of stability, the moment she has moved out of the hometown, she even has her GED, and then did 2 years of vocational college with 2 babies. She got stable. Her life was put together. Why is it now that she's having all of this hostility, all of these obstacles in her life, when she's just trying to make it? She goes to church. Her anxiety is subdued. For the first time, she's not having a silent panic attack. And so Tamika decides, this is where I will join, and me and my boys are going to have a community where we can actually rely on someone who's not going to take advantage of us, who's not going to abandon us, but it's going to be a compass, a help to us. Or so she thought. Tamika gets in good with her newfound spiritual group. They're very inviting, extremely uplifting, and they have been helpful. But somebody in leadership has discerned that it's just Tamika and her 2 boys, and that she may need a little extra help. So they approach her. They set up a meeting, they pull her aside, and they let her know that the Lord put it on their heart. And that they knew that she needed some help. And they see her as family. And they want to help her. And Tamika is holding back tears because she doesn't ask anyone for anything. She's been so busy getting it and doing it for herself and taking care of her 2 kids. She doesn't even pray to God. She doesn't even think about God because she thinks her issues are too small and insignificant to even God. Tamika lets them know of the issues that she's been having. She doesn't go into details, but energetically, by reading her, scanning her energy, telepathically, knowing her background without her even saying it, they have found the number that Tamika needs in order to make her life stable again. So they write her a check for that number. And she is astonished, because how did you know? This had to be some sort of miraculous act from God. How could you possibly know that this was the number that I needed to fix my car, to cover on some of the bills that I've been robbing Peter to pay Paul for, to cut back on the hours that I've even had at the club? And with the number that was given to her, she didn't even have to work at the club anymore. Tamika was now going to be working for a new club. She was also going to be relocating a new home in a better area. She had enough money to have more of a stable living. Anything that she needed. She couldn't believe it. It was like a dream. But what was the catch? The catch was, now that we've given you this setup, we need you to do something for us. She quickly understands that there's an assignment, and she's not turning this assignment down. No one's ever helped her like this before. No one's ever been there for her before. All society, the world has ever done is take from Tamika and take and take and take and take. And no one even considers she's human. She has wants. She has needs. So Tamika takes the offer. And wherever they tell her to go, she goes. And wherever they tell her to be, she's there. And whatever she has to do, she does it. And life is good. Until one day, it gets so good that the overseer asks for her. The overseer is just like how it sounds. Someone who oversees and facilitates the daily lives and the activities of their property. See, what Tamika didn't know is that every area of her home, she was being surveillanced. And even on her devices, completely oblivious, unbeknownst to her. But because she was such a good employee, and because also she had 2 young children, the overseer took a special interest in her. You see, watching her, this overseer and the group that is under the overseer, notice that Tamika was extremely spiritually gifted. She had things in her. She had ideas, creativity that she was exploring. Because she had more free time, she was able to be a better mother to her children. Her prayer life grew and grew. Everything in her life went up. Everything in her life was amazing. And she thanked God for it. But when she thanked God, when she praised God, it was as if heaven invaded her space. And when the overseer saw that, he knew, I need her. So what was disguised as a promotion within this newfound community was going to quickly turn into one of the worst things that Tamika could invite into her life. She quickly found out that her overseer not only had an interest in her, but in her family. And not being able to say no to this individual due to the fact that her entire livelihood would be snatched or taken away. Tamika obliges this overseer. Tamika doesn't feel good after obliging this overseer. Yes, it came with extra pay, money. There was even an offer to move inside of another home, which she modestly turned down. But yet there was always something more. The overseer became more aggressive, showing up and popping up at her home anytime he felt like it, because after all, he was paying for everything that she had. Yeah, sure, she was able to save money, but even her accounts were being monitored. And he could freeze her assets anytime he wanted to. She was his property. And energetically, Tamika felt worse and worse every time he came around. She couldn't get her thoughts together. She felt like her energy was being drained. She became more irritated with her children. He got to the point where he was raising his voice. He was yelling. He was irate with her. He wanted as much of her energetic field that he could get, and he was going to get it at any cost. And then one day he hits her. And she doesn't think anything of it until it continues to happen. And she's picking herself up off the floor, bound to a life of secrecy, where she's not able to say anything or go anywhere because she no longer has anything of her own. Tamika decides that it's time that she leaves this community. Before she makes the decision to do that, she is verbally threatened that if she tries to leave, there will be no coming back. And not coming back into the community, meaning she'd be threatened with her life. And then the overseer leans into her, and lets her know that he really isn't even interested in her. What he really needs are her boys. And if she wants to continue to be able to care for them in the way that she is, he's going to need them. Tamika, while pregnant with both of her sons, vowed to never allow the atrocities that happened to her as a child to happen to her children. Tamika makes plans to leave. And because they know that she is making plans to leave, the energetic assaults start. The very next day, Tamika is seeing someone walk through her home. She goes to follow the individual down the hall, and in a hysterical voice, she asks, "What are you doing in my home?" Only to find out it's an apparition. The lights flicker on and off in her home, a brand new infrastructure. No one else is having issues. The fridge goes out one day while she's out with the boys, and when she comes home, everything in the fridge is spoiled. The phone calls that she used to get to her delight from the community have now turned cold. No one is calling her. No one returns her calls. She's being shunned online. The teachers are acting different with her sons. Now all of a sudden, one is displaying anger issues. The other one, they want to do testing on. Once a very studious, alert, and attentive mother, now Tamika is having days where she can't even get out of the bed. It's hard for her to take care of her kids. Day by day, she's seeing things, she's hearing things. She can't let anyone, especially not the kids, know that something is wrong or something is going on with her, but she feels like the walls of her home are caving in on her. She's having panic attacks. Now she's getting threatening messages left on her voicemail. She hasn't heard from anyone. When she goes to her place of worship, people are standoffish. And now every sermon is about her and her short